Lights, camera,
Rolling.
action.
Good day, everyone. We are here to present to you the Chapter 5 topic, which is the market system and equilibrium. I am CENTENNE LAGAT.
And I am CHARMINE AMITA.
Chapter 5 Market System and Equilibrium.
The market supply and equilibrium. The economic system. An economic system is a mechanism which deals with the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services in a particular society and compromises of people, institutions, and their relationships. In simpler terms, all human needs and wants are centralized in economic welfare. Economic system also regulate factors of production, including capital, labor, physical resources, and entrepreneurs. It also addresses problems like allocation or scarcity of resources. There are 4 types of economic system. We have traditional economy, capitalism economy, socialist economy, and mixed economy. We will discuss each types in the next slides. First, we have traditional economy. Before the invention of money, people in ancient civilization or small communities used to barter for goods. Bartering is the process of trading one good for another. Societies with traditional economies depend on agriculture, fishing, hunting, gathering, or some combination of them. Most traditional economies operate in emerging markets and developing countries. They are often in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East. Next is the capitalist economy. A capitalist economy is an economic system in which the production and distribution of commodities takes place through the mechanism of free markets. It is sometimes called market economic system. In a market economy, producers make goods based on the amount demand they perceive to exist among consumers. A market economy is a system where the laws of supply and demand direct the production of goods and services. For instance, gold is greatly demanded by people across the world, but its supply is limited. Therefore, gold is expensive. We have also features of capitalist economy. These are private property rights, profit motive, freedom of choice, market forces, and minimal role of government. The private property rights. In a capitalist economy, individual can own land, factories, and other properties. Next, profit motive. In a capitalist economy, the ultimate objective of all production is to earn profit. Freedom of choice. Every consumer can enjoy any commodity according to his ability, desire, and choice. The producers produce goods according to the demand of consumers. Market forces. The actions of buyers and sellers that causes the prices of goods and services to change without being controlled by the government. The price of a commodity is determined by the demand and supply, and the production and consumption are based on pricing system. And lastly, the minimal role of government. For instance, in private sector initiative, individual can acquire resources from production, establish mills and factories, from trades and businesses according to their choice and facilities available. There is no government intervention or control. The socialist economy. In a socialist economy, there is a dominant, centralized authority, usually the government, that controls a significant portion of the economic structure. The socialist economic system is common in communist societies since production decisions are the preserve of the government. All the decisions regarding production are taken by central planning authority. It is also called planned or command economy. These are the features of socialist economy. We have state ownership of wealth, absence of individual initiatives, central planning, and limitation of freedom of the consumer. The state ownership of wealth. The general public of the country or the state is the owner of the wealth. In a socialist system, state ownership exists over land, mills and factories, minerals and other resources. Whatever is earned from these resources is spent for the society. Next, is the absence of the individual initiatives. In socialism, all the factors of production are under the control of the state. So there is no individual initiative in matters of establishing industrial factories or carrying out trades and businesses, etc. As a result of there is no scope of making any individual profit. Next, the central planning. The planning authority decides over the commodities and their quantity that are to be produced and also the method of production. All the economic activities are performed by the instruction of central planning authority. And the last, is the limitation of the freedom of consumer. Production and import of goods and commodities take place at the initiative of government according to the needs of the society. And the last is the mixed economy. A mixed economic system is a system that combines aspects of both capitalism and socialism. In a mixed economy, the government tends to own major industries like utilities, healthcare, and major manufacturing industries. Also, a mixed economic system protects private property and allows a level of economic freedom in the use of capital, but also allows for governments to interfere in economic activities in order to achieve social aims. The features of mixed economy. First, resources are owned by government as well as private individuals. Next, citizens are taxed heavily to provide all citizens a social safety net such as welfare, free university tuition, and free health care. And lastly, all basic and heavy industries and other strategic sector of an economy like banking, transport, energy, etc. are controlled by the government. Agriculture, consumer goods, and other industries trade are left for the private sector. Next topic is the demand and supply curve. What is a demand? Demand is quantities of particular good or service consumers are willing and able to buy at different possible prices. It is an economic principle referring to a consumer's desire to purchase goods and services and willingness to pay a price for a specific good or service. A market demand is the total quantity demanded across all consumers in a market for a given good. The law of demand. It is all other things remaining unchanged, the quantity demanded of good increases when its price decreases and vice versa. Or in simpler terms, when the price goes up, demand goes down. And when the price goes down, demand goes up. The quantity demanded. It is the amount of a good that a consumer is willing to buy and able to buy at a given price over a period of time. We have demand schedule. It shows different the quantities of goods that a consumer is willing to buy at various prices. Prices and quantities normally move in opposite directions. The example of demand schedule is shown below. The demand curve. It is a curve showing the relationship between the price of a good and the quantity demanded. It is also a graph illustrating how much of a given product would be willing to buy at a different prices. Say for example at a price of 8 pesos per hot dog, consumers will buy 2 hot dogs. At a price of 6 pesos per hot dog, consumer will buy 4 hot dogs. And so on and so forth. What are the determinants of the demand? We have changes in income, prices or availability of substitutes, prices or availability of complementary goods, changes in the number of buyers, and changes in tastes and preferences. First, the changes in income. When the income of the buyer increases, for example, that could also increase demand. The buyer has more money and is more likely to spend it. But when other factors increase, like the price of related goods, for example, demand could decrease. Next, the prices or availability of substitute. For example, the price of coffee increases, the demand for tea may also increase as consumers switch from coffee to tea to maintain their budgets. Conversely, when a good's price decreases, the demand for its substitute may also decrease. The third one is the price and availability of complements. Say for example, when the price of hot dogs increase, it can cause a decrease in the demand for hot dog buns. Since the cost of hot dogs has an inverse relationship with the demand for hot dog buns, they are considered complementary products. The fourth one is changes in the number of buyers. Now, consider how a change in the number of buyers shifts the demand curve. More buyers. If there is an increase in the number of buyers in the market, then the demand for the good increases. But if there is a decrease in the number of buyers in the market, then the demand for the good decreases. And lastly, we have changes in tastes and preferences. For example, if a celebrity endorses a new product, this may increase the demand for a product. On the other hand, if a new health study comes out saying something is bad for your health, this may decrease the demand for the product. Related goods and services. Normal goods are goods for which demand goes up when income is higher and for which demand goes down when income is lower. For example, Nike or Adidas shoes would be a normal good. As you make more money, you are likely to move from off-brand shoes to nicer quality ones. To summarize, a good is normal when you consume or demand more of it because your income has increased. Inferior goods are goods for which demand falls when income rises. Coffee is also a good example. A McDonald's coffee may be an inferior good compared to a Starbucks coffee. When a consumer's income drops, he may substitute his daily Starbucks coffee for the more affordable McDonald's coffee. On the other hand, when a consumer's income rises, he may substitute his McDonald's coffee for the more expensive Starbucks coffee. Substitutes are goods where you can consume one in place of the other. A coffee can be a substitute for tea or a margarine can be a substitute of a butter. Complements are goods that are consumed together, the shoe and the polish, a car and a tire, the smartphone and the apps. Shifts of demand and movement along the demand curve. On the first graph, in this example, a higher price causes lower quantity demanded. Changes of determinants of demand, other than price, cause a change in demand or shift of the entire demand curve from demand A to demand B. On the second graph, when demand shifts to the right, the demand increases. This causes quantity demanded to be greater than it was prior to the shift, for each and every price level. Now, we will discuss supply. In a supply schedule, it shows how much of a product firms will supply at different prices. A quantity supplied represents the number of a product that a firm would be willing and able to offer for sale at a particular price during a given period of time. A supply curve is a graph, illustrating how much of a product a firm will supply at different prices. As you can see in the graph, the curve is curving upwards as there is an increase at a different level of prices. The law of supply. The law of supply states that there is a positive relationship between price and quantity of a good supplied. This means that supply curves typically have a positive slope. How will you determine supply? You should identify the following. 1. Price of the good or service. 2. Cost of producing the good, which depends on the price of the required inputs and technologies. The third determinant is the prices of related products. Next slide would be a change in supply versus a change in quantity supplied. A change in supply is not the same as a change in quantity supplied. In this example, a higher price causes higher quantity supplied, and a move along the demand curve. To continue, when supply shifts to the right, supply increases. This causes quantity supplied to be greater than it was prior to the shift, for each and every price level. To summarize the change in supply versus the change in quantity supplied. A change in price of a good or service leads to change in quantity supplied. While the change in costs, input prices, technology, or prices of related goods or services leads to change in supply. This slide would be the difference between the individual and the market supply. The supply of a good or service can be defined for an individual firm, or for a group of firms that make up a market or an industry. Supply is the sum of all the quantities of a good or service supplied, per period, by all the firms selling in the market for that good or service. As with the market demand, market supply is the horizontal summation of individual firms' supply curves. As you can see on the graph, the supply of Firm A, Firm B and Firm C is summarized in the last graph, which is the market supply. Next topic would be market equilibrium. In a market equilibrium, the operation of the market depends on the interaction between buyers and sellers. An equilibrium is the condition that exists when quantity supplied and quantity demanded are equal. At the equilibrium, there is no tendency for the market price to change. In addition, only in equilibrium is quantity supplied equal to quantity demanded. that any price level other than zero, the wishes of buyers and sellers do not coincide. In a market disequilibria, excess demand or shortage is the condition that exists when quantity demanded exceeds quantity supplied at the current price. When quantity demanded exceeds quantity supplied, price tends to rise until equilibrium is restored. On the other hand, excess supply or surplus is the condition that exists when quantity supplied exceeds quantity demanded at the current price. When quantity supplied exceeds quantity demanded, price tends to fall until equilibrium is restored. A higher demand leads to a higher equilibrium price and a higher equilibrium quantity, while a higher supply leads to a lower equilibrium price and a higher equilibrium quantity. In contrast, a lower demand leads to a lower price and a lower quantity exchanged, while a lower supply leads to a higher price and a lower quantity exchanged. The relative magnitude of change in supply and demand determines the outcome of market equilibrium. When supply and demand both increase, the quantity will increase, but price may go up or down. That's the end of our report. Thank you for watching.
But wait! There's more! Drop!
When I throw these hundreds, I hope that your ass gon' know what to do.
We do it like